Greetings and good Monday morning, the 18th of July, 2022, third decade of the 21st century. I always do that as part of my preamble to kind of highlight the sort of things we're talking about versus where people predicted us to be. As part of my preamble, I always like to establish why I started my channel and what my channel's about. That might be a bit difficult as I'm being hijacked here by my lovely cat, Ginger. Um, the bottom line is I needed a place to vent. I didn't trust the media because I feel like the media sources, regardless, have an agenda, and that agenda was attempting to split us into factions, right versus left, liberal versus conservative, so on and so forth. And I feel like we're better than that. I feel like if we can actually stop and have conversations, we don't have to get wrapped up in identity politics. We can probably find more things to agree on and find a way to be civil. And I understand that for each individual, there's probably one topic that is very near and dear to your heart. For some, it may be multiple topics, and maybe you're heavily invested. I get it. But at the end of the day, when I started this channel almost 2 years ago, I recorded about, I don't know, half a dozen, no, not half a dozen, over a dozen videos before I published anything. And I was very, very opinionated. I was very hard line in the sand. And it was just one of those where I was like, well, if I think I'm a good person, I individually think I'm a good person. I'm a productive member of society. I'm a rational human being, but I just happen to have thoughts, feelings, and opinions on certain things. Why couldn't people who potentially think and feel differently on certain topics be equally rational, equally good people, equally productive members of society, and why do we need to oppose each other? You know, but it is what it is. So I was like, I feel like the media is forcing us in that direction, and maybe, just maybe, we can overcome this. Now, I overestimated the popularity of my channel, as in, I thought I would have hundreds of views and hundreds of comments and whatnot. And I don't know why I thought that, but I did. I usually average between 0 to maybe 2 views, and very rarely do I get comments. Sometimes my friends will watch, people that are in my inner circle, and they'll comment with stuff like, "Oh yeah, I totally agree," and it's like, "Well, of course you agree. That's why we're friends." But more often than not, I'm interested to hear from people who disagree to see if we have any dialogue, but politely disagree. It does no good if we're just calling each other names. And I will tell you this much: um, a few months ago, I had an issue on my channel, and I found myself trying really hard to play nice and make nice with people who didn't deserve it, with people whose egos, with people whose identity politics, with whatever character flaws. We all have flaws. People who just quite frankly didn't deserve it. And the only reason I was entertaining it was because I didn't want to lose the action. I didn't want to lose the traction I was gaining. I had gained a couple of followers from a previous video that was totally innocuous but blew up my channel. And what started out as a positive thing quickly devolved into essentially name calling, and I kept trying to play as nice as possible at, I guess you might call risk to myself and risk to my own personal emotions. So I will say this: I'm not going to do that. And for anybody who's like, oh, well, I just can't, well, then don't. Change the channel, stop watching, hit pause, move on. Don't get involved. Oh my God, I don't care. All right. If you're that kind of a toxic, narcissistic, egocentric idiot, identity politics, whatever the case may be, piss off. So, without further ado, I've been trying really hard to make this video, and this video is probably a month behind schedule, simply because for whatever reason, the software I use, do not walk on the keyboard. The software I use won't transfer the audio, so it literally is like it's just my moving face. So originally, I had spoken about the Supreme Court decision with Roe versus Wade. So a lot of people are talking about it, people that some people are interested in, others might not be interested in. I will admit, I find it terribly difficult to immerse myself in the commentary of people that are just very hard to listen to, like far left or far people on the far left, you know, extreme liberals, people who are like everything is racist when you live in America, just invert the lyrics to the Lego movie. Um, Although I should, because I think it would help if I was immersed in their opinions, but I just can't because I find it frustrating and I don't want to live a frustrated life. Like you are frustrating the hell out of me right now. I'm petting you. My God. Anybody else go through this? Is it a cat thing? Like, oh, I see the laptop's open. I'll give you 5 minutes and then I'm going to ambush you. So Roe versus Wade. Back in the 70s, the Supreme Court uh, ruled that when it came to Roe versus Wade, a woman had the right to choose an abortion. The reason why that was bad constitutional law, simply put, is that in the Constitution there was no amendment and or right to an abortion. It just didn't exist. So Roe versus Wade was just bad constitutional law. So all the Supreme Court did was like, look, this has no business up here at the federal level. This has to go back down to the state. And I understand some states may take a hard line view, left or right. I don't know that many states are going to be somewhere down the middle. Equally and opposite, the reason why I'm talking about it and still talking about it because my video didn't get published is I was severely upset with and disenfranchised with the response, especially from elected officials. Elected officials whose job it is to know how law works, especially constitutional law. You see, all they have to do is create an amendment and ratify that amendment through the House, through the Senate, and get it signed by the president. It really doesn't matter who initiates. The president can initiate, the Senate can initiate, Congress can initiate. We can do amendments. Amendments are not impossible. So without the amendment, without making that an actual right, all right, there was no right for it. So it was just bad constitutional law. And I was utterly frustrated with how these elected officials were just, out there clowning for the circus, oh this, oh that. And then AOC, I admire her passion. I just wish she was more educated, especially in her position. So then she goes on like Colbert and she's talking about the Hyde Act. Well, for anybody who doesn't know, the Hyde Act basically made it illegal for the federal government to get involved in the abortion industry, up to and including profiting off of the abortion industry, and the federal government getting involved in Planned Parenthood, which was basically a foundational principle of Margaret Sanger, who was a eugenicist and a racist who focused primarily in neighborhoods that were concentrated with people of color, black, Hispanic, you name it. All right. Uh, I don't have quotes, but essentially, she set up these clinics in these neighborhoods to try to essentially prevent the the growth of the African American community, the Hispanic community, so on and so forth. So, especially for people to try to push this as a POC agenda, like, oh, people of color really need to have abortions. You do understand that an abortion is the termination of a pregnancy, which is life. The moment the sperm fertilizes the egg, life has begun. But I digress. I've made this comment numerous times. I have more than one video in my back catalog pertaining to abortion. I don't really have a dog in this fight. In my 46 years on this earth, I have seen some things more than some, less than others. I've experienced some things more than some, less than others. And I can honestly say with confidence, there are people that probably should not have been born. There are people that probably should have been aborted. And there are people we just don't need more of. I'm not a mathematician. Statistically, I don't want to know how many potential cancer curers are waiting to be born in the ghetto? All right. How many white trash crack moms are going to, give birth to the next Nobel Prize winning scientist or whatever the case may be? So, I don't really have a dog in this fight. My only my only concern would be time, where I think certain states like Colorado are like, yeah, sure, 8, 9 months, whatever, you know. And we're not talking about health of the child, health of the mother. We're just like, the mom took 8 or 9 months to shit or get off the pot. So beyond that, I don't really have much of a dog in this fight, other than I do think there should be a reasonable amount of time to shit or get off the pot. There should be a reasonable amount of time to, make a decision. And then after that, if you fail and you don't want to be a parent, then adopt the child out. But that's really all I have to say about that. If anybody else wants to continue that conversation, by all means. Uh, what else has been out there lately? This whole 1-6 committee, the January 6th. Here's my thoughts and opinions on that. I understand a lot of people didn't like Trump, and it became cool to not like Trump, if for no other reason celebrities didn't like Trump. And I would probably venture a guess that celebrities didn't like Trump because when they went on Celebrity Apprentice, they weren't treated special. Celebrities, I think, get used to their egos being catered to, and Trump didn't cater to their egos, and it hurt their feelings. So it became cool to dislike Trump. And I'll admit, Trump, in his everyday conduct, could have been better, could have been more likable, and he just wasn't. But when I compare some of the responses we got as far as just everyday things, like the gas prices, okay? Just keep it simple. The vast majority of us have a vehicle. The vast majority of us have to purchase gasoline to power that vehicle to get us from point A to point B to do our day-to-day things. Go to work, grocery shop, go to medical appointments, whatever the case may be. So we're all feeling the price. Secondly, you don't like the way Donald Trump conducted himself. You really think Joe Biden is a better example? Repeat the line. My point of contention is this. I could keep going on and on with examples. My whole point is this with the January 6th committee. When you look at the response to Roe versus Wade and what some people have said, people in a celebrity status, whether they're elected officials, whether they're television personalities, YouTube personalities, singer songwriters, whatever the case may be, everything that Trump is being accused of for January 6th, the people that are doing the exact same thing, but in this case, they're actually doing it. Trump is accused of inciting a riot, inciting violence. He's accused of, hey guys, go do this. Okay? He never said it, but he's being accused of, hey, here's what I want everybody to do. You go over here and do this. You go over here and do that. You have elected officials, all right? Nancy Pelosi, AOC, Maxine Waters, Elizabeth Warren, probably a handful of others. You have people like Samantha Bee, all right, and probably a handful of others, calling for unrest, calling for civil disobedience, calling for insurrection. My point is, what's good for the goose has to be good for the gander. I don't care if you don't like Trump, all right? What goes around comes around, all right? If the left, the Democratic Party, cannot have a majority on outrage. All right, outrage is not a singular device that can be owned by just one political organization. All right, my personal view of the world, what comes around goes around. All right, you have to lie in the bed that you make. If you want to throw stones and you live in a glass house, it is what it is. So I think in my personal opinion, if there's a massive red wave uh, later this year and the Republicans take over the House and the Senate, they immediately need to have proceedings against all these individuals and charge them with crimes, especially if it can be directly linked to civil disobedience that causes damage, harm, bodily harm, death, whatever. Okay? They need to be charged. And then I think, quite frankly, If it's an elected official, they need to be impeached. They need to be removed from office, and they should also be barred from running for office ever again as a result of their consequences. But here's the thing: I'm curious to hear what other people might think about this. All right, should turnaround be fair play? All right, can you objectively get over some of your biases and be like, you know what, you're right, wrong is wrong, right is right. Even though I support the Democratic Party or I'm a lefty or whatever the case may be, wrong is wrong, right is right. They should absolutely suffer the same consequences that they're trying to impose on the right. Uh, or absolutely not. I like it my way. All right. The world needs to be Burger King, my way, right away. Whether you're rational or whether you're irrational, I'd like to hear from you. All right. And have a conversation and see if there's common ground or if some of us are just rationally irrational people. And I'll leave you with this: I'm no expert on things. um, I have thoughts, views, and opinions based on the sum total of my life. What I've learned is, and this goes back to an incident that took place on my channel, we as human beings, we don't like to be grouped or labeled. But at the same time, equal and opposite, we love to segregate ourselves and form groups and join groups on our own free will. We don't like to be assigned. We like to choose. If you look at the span of human history since mankind, evolved from the amoeba or from Adam and Eve, whichever you believe in, we have always segregated ourselves from others. We have always formed groups, birds of a feather flocking together. We've always had conflicts with one another. All right. Groups form. All right. Group A has a difference in opinion with Group B, so on and so forth. All right. And it's just the nature of humanity. So, speaking of labels, all right, I use them as I see fit. That being said, I consider myself mostly an independent. In light of having solid independent options to vote for, I tend to vote Republican. And I've said this numerous times. If both parties represent dogs, okay? Because when you have a dog is going to crap in your yard and you have to clean up the poop. I look at Democrats as big dogs, big poop, big mess. And I look at Republicans as little dogs, little poop, little mess. I tend to vote for the smaller mess, less effort to clean up. All right. Why do I consider myself an independent? Because there's certain things within the Republican Party that I'm just not in love with, not enough to join the party and be a card carrying member, to be a registered Republican, plant the flag out in my yard, have all the signs out in my yard. Unfortunately, and I don't know how we fix this, but industry and business has gotten involved in our politics to where you only have option A or option B. All right. And every time the election comes around, I look at options C, D, E, F, whatever, right? And I'll be honest, they're just not good. I have yet to find an option C, B, D, E, or F that was just, yeah, absolutely. So I understand some of you. I understand some of you are like, well, I just can't get on board with Republicans, but I'm not in love with the Democrats, but I have to pick a side. I have to pick an island. I don't know that we have to, but at the same time, I understand the inclination. On that note, I'm also curious what some of you think. Are you 100% sold into your party? Have you chosen a party allegiance? I'm not necessarily allegiant to the Republican Party, but I find them less offensive. I find them more tolerable than the Democratic Party. I'll go one step further, and I've said this numerous times. Since we fought the Civil War, I firmly believe that the Democratic Party should have been abolished in principle. Their ideology, their concept, their political affiliation should have been abolished at the culmination of the Civil War. You lost. Your ideology lost. And I don't think we handled the Civil War that well, taking Confederate soldiers into the Union Army, allowing the Confederate South to have Jim Crow and segregation. I don't think we handled it that well. I think if ultimately there was not only a war to unify the nation, but also a subsequent war over ideology, the ideology should have been purged. I mean, previous wars we fought to destroy the Nazis. We fought to destroy imperialist Japan. All right. We fought to destroy fascism and socialism in Europe, and they're gone. For the most part, they're gone. All right. Minus maybe some fringe fractions out there, they're gone. But we didn't do it in our own country, and maybe that's one of our greatest faults. So I'm curious. If you've made it this far, what do you think? I don't care if you like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. I just want to see if we can overcome the media and have these conversations. So, with that being said, if you watched the video, if you got involved, if you left a comment, I do appreciate it. And you're awesome. Till next time.